You ever have one of those Saturdays that starts off so normal, so peaceful, you almost feel like you're living someone else's life? That's how it was for me. Just me, an old pair of jeans, a busted knuckle, and a socket wrench half buried underneath my latest project in the garage, letting Tom Petty play backup band to the sound of my own tinkering. I was in the zone, you know. That's when the universe decided I'd had enough peace for one lifetime and sent Brenda Harwick, HOA president, part-time neighborhood warden, full-time, pain in the neck, click, clacking her way up my driveway. I swear the sound of those heels could drive a man to drink before noon. She didn't even bother with a hello. Just stood there clutching her clipboard like a shield, eyes locked on my pride and joy, sitting right in plain sight, a rough-looking primer gray hunk of American muscle that only a true car lover could see for what it was. "What in the world is that monstrosity?" she gasped like I'd dragged a dead cow into her flower bed. I slid out grease all over my hands, tried not to laugh. That, I said with the kind of patience you reserve for children and very stubborn adults, is a 1967 Shelby GT500. You should have seen her face scrunched up like she'd bit into a lemon. She barked out a laugh, scribbling on her clipboard like she was auditioning for a role in Mean Girls: The Retirement Years. "A Shelby," she repeated, pure mockery in her voice. "That piece of junk violates at least 6 HOA codes. Inoperable vehicle, eyesore, damaging property values, the list goes on." Now, I know the rules may be better than she does, and I kept my tone even. The car's fully operational. It's undergoing restoration. That's legal by state law. But Brenda wasn't having any of it. She just waved her hand, her ring, blinding me in the sun, and fired off another line about community standards like that car was single-handedly going to tank the whole zip code. For 3 weeks, it was open season on me and my Shelby. Every day a fresh violation on my door noise complaints, even though I never touched the car after 7 p.m. The wrong color tarp, because apparently beige comes in 50 shades. But mine wasn't the approved one. And oil stains on my driveway that were nothing but water spots. I'd catch her snapping photos in my yard at sunrise, sneaking around like a private detective on a budget. Then came the petition. Brenda making her rounds, telling every neighbor within shouting distance that my so-called junk car was slicing their home values by 15%. Did she have any evidence? Of course not, but she said it so loud and so often that a few folks actually bought it. Things really hit the fan when she called a special HOA meeting. I sat in the back trying not to laugh while Brenda stood at the podium with a PowerPoint that was basically a slideshow of my Shelby's worst angles. "This is the reason we need stricter enforcement," she declared, milking every dramatic pause like she was up for an Oscar. She must have said aesthetic a dozen times in 10 minutes. My neighbor Gary tried to jump in. He's an old-school gearhead. Gets it, but Brenda shut him down. "Unless you have a degree in property management like I do. Maybe leave this to the experts." I bit my tongue. Figured this wasn't the moment to point out her degree came from an online diploma mill. 2 days later, I woke up, grabbed my coffee, and walked outside to find nothing. My Shelby was gone. In its place, taped right on the oil spot she hated so much, was a neon orange notice towed for HOA violations, impounded at Riverside, $3, $800 in fines due on pickup. Brenda's signature, and get this, a little smiley face. Now here's where things get interesting. I called the impound, and after a little digging, found out the towing company was owned by Brenda's brother-in-law, Roger. No surprise there. But more importantly, she'd skipped a critical step. HOA bylaws said you needed a board vote to tow any vehicle. There wasn't one. Brenda had gone rogue. I started gathering evidence, screenshots, emails, even a photo of Roger and Brenda at last year's HOA barbecue, just to drive the point home. Then I called my lawyer. What Brenda didn't know, what she couldn't even imagine, was what she'd actually towed. My junk was one of only 2 Shelby GT500 Super Snakes ever made. Not only authenticated by Carroll Shelby International, but fresh from an estate sale where I'd picked it up for a song and spent weeks verifying every serial number. The car she called worthless north of $2.1 million, give or take a bidding war. And now it was sitting outside exposed to the elements, collecting scratches, water damage, and whatever else Riverside's fine establishment had to offer. My insurance company didn't mess around. They sent out their own investigator, filed immediate claims against the HOA and Brenda for theft and negligence. I paid the fee to get my Shelby back just to stop the bleeding, but not before 3 separate appraisers documented the fresh damage scratches from a bad toe-cracked windshield water in the trunk. The bill, $187,000 and change. 6 weeks later, we're in court. Me, my lawyer, 3 expert witnesses, including a big shot from Barrett Jackson, and boxes of documentation. Brenda waltzes in 15 minutes late. Starbucks in one hand, clipboard in the other, acting like she owns the place. She actually tells the judge she was late because she had to issue another violation out in the parking lot. You can't make this stuff up. My attorney lays it all out, provenance photos, the whole shebang. Your Honor, this isn't just a car. It's automotive history, and it's been damaged by unauthorized negligent action. Brenda tries to butt in, insisting it's still an eyesore paperwork or not. The judge's face goes cold. Ms. Harwick, do you have documentation showing a board vote for the tow? Brenda stammers something about executive authority for beautification, but the judge cuts her off. Bylaws say no such thing. Then he starts poking holes in the towing company connection, reading off Roger's name right there on the invoice. The Barrett Jackson guy testifies about value rarity, recent auction numbers, making sure the judge really understands just how badly Brenda's little power trip has gone. She tries to argue again that appearance is what matters, but the judge finally has enough. Ms. Harwick, you exceeded your authority, engaged in self-dealing, and caused significant damage to an irreplaceable vehicle through negligence and abuse of power. That courtroom got real quiet real fast. Judgment was swift. The HOA owes $187,000 for damages. Brenda, acting alone, abusing her position personally, hit with $30,000 in punitive damages plus immediate removal as president and barred from any HOA board for a decade. That's not even the kicker. The State Real Estate Commission catches wind and investigates Brenda's so-called credentials. Turns out her degree isn't worth the paper it's printed on, so they fine her $5,000 for misrepresentation. Her employer, turns out she was just an assistant, not a manager, fires her the next day. Word gets around, and let's just say nobody in Cedar Heights will be asking Brenda to watch their houseplants, much less run their HOA. The last thing I remember from that courtroom is Brenda's face going from red to white to this kind of sickly green, knocking over her coffee as she tried to make one last speech about conspiracies against neighborhood standards. The judge just told her to sit down or risk contempt. Her clipboard hit the floor, echoing louder than any gavel. So, what do you think? Was justice served, or did it go too far? Would you have handled Brenda any differently, or did she finally get what was coming to her? I want to know. Have you ever dealt with an HOA nightmare like this, or seen someone abuse their little scrap of power? Drop your story in the comments. Share your take on justice. Let's see whose HOA war stories can top mine.